right, welcome, band kids. It is Thursday. This is the fourth edition of our guest speaker series, and I'm thrilled to welcome our guest today, Mr. Jeff Coffin. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
I am great.
Awesome.
Glad to have you here. So,
glad to be here, man. Thank you.
Sure. So for those that don't know, Jeff is a 3-time Grammy Award-winning saxophonist, currently playing, well, not currently playing with the Dave Matthews Band, but that's the main gig. And is well known for his work with Bella Fleck before that, and lots of other great things simultaneously and before and after and all that. So we're thrilled to have you here. I'd love to hear for all the band kids out there what your experience was like, how you came up into the music world as a band student.
Sure. Okay. Well, I started in I guess 5th grade playing alto sax in a very small town in Maine called Dexter, Maine, and I kind of took to music pretty quickly early on. I wanted to play drums. I still do, but I don't. I've got a drum set, but it's for other people. It's for actual drummers. And but my director said, how about saxophone? We need some saxophone players. And honestly, it had never crossed my mind. But I said sure, because I just wanted to play in band. I didn't really care what I played so much. And so I took to it pretty quickly, and I started playing with my director's trio after the summer of my 7th grade year. And so he had a working trio. And so I was playing professionally at that point, doing, weddings and dances and those kinds of things. I mean, these really small town kind of things. I mean, I was making anywhere from $30 to $50 a gig. And this would have been in the late 70s. And, prices haven't changed much for freelance, prices haven't changed so much. People are still playing for free, actually, which is crazy. But anyhow, moved to New Hampshire right before high school. And so kind of had to start the whole process again of, figuring out music and all. And I had a great director there. And, I'd already been bitten by the music bug, so I knew that this was what I wanted to do. And so, I went to some music camps at the University of New Hampshire. Went part-time to UNH for a couple of years before I went to North Texas, and basically learned how to practice. And so when I got to North Texas, I was ready for the shed. And so I was spending 8 to 12 hours a day practicing every day. Got my music ed degree there. I had to play in marching band actually in college as well, because it's part of the music ed degree that you have to be in marching band. So in high school, we had an amazing high school marching band in Rochester, New Hampshire. And because here's a funny story. So because it gets pretty cold up there, everything tends to freeze at a certain point. And it wouldn't be unusual for us to be out there and be, high 30s at night or something. So stuff gets cold and valves freeze and woodwinds sound awful.
They do.
Where are you guys located again?
We're in Maryland.
So you get it then, man. So
we get a little bit of that, yeah.
So woodwinds sound awful when it's cold. Flutes, piccolos, saxophones. It's like the definition of a half step is, 2 flutes trying to play unison at 38 degrees kind of thing. It's just awful. Clarinets. And so my director, a guy named Doug Patch, decided that all the woodwinds would be moved to brass for marching band. So that's what we did. And so for 3 years in high school, in the fall, I played sousaphone, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I wish I had one still. And so I learned about the embouchure. I practiced by putting a sheet of paper. Okay, putting a sheet of paper up on the wall and keeping it there with my breath, which is still one of the methods I use with students to get them to understand how to support the sound. You know, it's kind of like if you put your hand in front of your face, and you all should do this, actually. All of you that are watching, I can't see you, but I'll be able to feel you. So if you put your hand a couple inches away from your mouth, and usually I like for everybody to stand up when they do this, but you can do it sitting down also. If you pretend your hand is a birthday cake and there's a bunch of candles on the top, right? And you're trying to blow out, you know, like 50 birthday candles at once. All in one breath. And you do that with a concentrated effort. If you put your hand on the part of your body that you feel the pressure, it's going to be right here. You know, it's going to be right between the ribs. And so that's where your support comes from. And I will guarantee you, man, if you get all your marching band students to do this, it's going to double their sound, you know? And I don't know if you can do that virtually or not, but it'll double their sound.
Yeah.
And so I get all my students, I get them to do this because we talk about air velocity and how important that is. And so that's one of the things that I learned from playing sousaphone was about air velocity. And we can talk about this a little bit later too, because it's a really important aspect of tone and dynamics, producing sound, projecting your sound also to a certain point. So these are important elements. So I learned how to play sousaphone, and I couldn't read bass clefs, so I would write all the fingerings in on the charts. And obviously, everything was memorized, and I would just memorize the fingerings. And I had no idea what notes I was playing. I just memorized the fingerings. So we did this for 3 years, you know, and and so we had all these different drills we would do. We'd be spinning the sousaphones around our backs and like just crazy stuff, but it was really great. And so I had a really good experience in high school with marching band. It was very musical, actually, and that was one of the things that that Doug was really, really pushing on us. He said, I want to make this the most musical band we can. And I remember my senior year, we moved up a class because we were winning everything in our class. And he said, we could stay in this class and win everything against the bands that are our size, or we could move up a class into bands that are bigger than us and see how we do and challenge ourselves.
That's cool.
And so for him, he really couldn't care about the accolades. He just wanted it to be a musical experience for all of us. So that's what we did. And he said, my goal for you, he says, at the New Englands is for us to win best music in a class that's bigger than us. And we did, And so kudos to him, man, for having that vision, for it being as musical an experience as it could possibly be for the students. And so I really appreciated that part of it as well,
Yeah.
And but I played saxophone in the big bands. Had a great experience through high school and then into college, where I was in the shed 8 to 12 hours a day, just working on stuff as a music ed major, pulling 20, 21 credit hours, sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and then I moved to Nashville in 1991. Next year will be 30 years, which is impossible to believe. And in 1997, I started playing with the Flecktones, with Bela Fleck. And I met the guys in Dave Matthews Band. Through that band, we used to do opening dates for them. And in 2008, I got a call that Leroy Moore had been seriously injured in a wreck, and an ATV wreck, and if I could sub for him for a few months until he recovered. And Flecktones were off. I was able to do it. I had to cancel. I was supposed to go to Australia and do a bunch of different education work, and so I canceled everything. And in the anniversary of Roy's death was yesterday, actually, August 19th of 2008. It's been 12 years, which is hard to believe. And so I was asked to stay on with the band, and I talked to Bela and the guys about it, and they were like, "Man, you got to do it," So I stayed on. I've been with Matthews now for 12 years. And, I've had my own group for many years also, in different configurations. I put out 17 solo records. I have my own record label. I've written 3 different books. I'm in the middle of 2 more. I teach at Vanderbilt University. This is my 6th year, starting next week at Vanderbilt. I've done well over 300 clinics around the world. I'm a Yamaha artist. I'm
That's
also
awesome.
a brand ambassador for the Boston Saxophone Shop. And I compose a lot. I've got a studio. We're in my studio right now,
Cool.
which is basically a loft space above my garage. And this is where I spend, 8 to 10 hours a day. I've got all my Pro Tools stuff here. All my gear is over here. And it's my rack stuff and a couple of great monitors and, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And
Great little space.
Yeah, it's a great space. So that's kind of, I guess that's kind of me in a nutshell. It all came from the love and desire to make music while I was in elementary school, and little did I know that the saxophone would literally take me around the world.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful every day, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I was looking at your book, The Road Book, which is a really cool pragmatic guide.
This right here?
Yeah, I think I've got it on Kindle. I'd have to show you another computer, but yeah, I thought it's a great little pragmatic set of resources on,
Thanks.
being on the real stuff, what you need to think about if that's what you want to do. Because I think everybody thinks like you're just going to hop on a bus and go play the gig,
right?
But there's a lot more to it. Gigs. Right? Yeah, sure. But yeah, I thought it was great. And one of the things in the introduction that stood out, and it probably relates a lot to that transition that you were talking about into the Dave Matthews Band. You talk about flexible situations or fluid situations and being flexible and winging it a little bit.
Being able to go with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like? Why is that important to you? And what was that like moving into the Dave Matthews Band?
Well, why is it important to me? It's important to me for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of people involved with what we do. And not everything is going to, shall we say, go your way all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and this goes for life too. Here's the thing, whenever, and I talk to my students about this also all the time. I say, whatever we talk about, we're really talking about life. We're just using music as the metaphor, So flexibility in life is really important in every aspect of things. In any relationship, you've got to have flexibility. And so for me, you're going to come up against situations live, whether they're travel days or off days or a piece of gear goes down. Your reed breaks in the middle of a solo, which has happened a couple of times. Any number of different things. I mean, you're sick on the road. Just so many possibilities of stuff going wrong, and you have to be able to kind of go with it. Like the man might take a left turn, and suddenly everybody's in a different place. And and what do you do, man? Like, you don't just go, what just happened? It's like you got to be like, okay, you just got to wait it out, man. So being able to hang with the situation is really important. Not getting too worked up over it. Realizing that people are really doing their best to make the situation as good as they can for everybody involved. And most importantly, I think, don't take it personally. Whatever it is, don't take it personally. And this is a lesson that is still hard to learn. you know, and because we want to take things personally. It's like even anti-social media, which is what I've come to calling it. You know, people take things so personally, and it's hard not to.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm telling you, like students, please, 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 I'm begging you to listen to me on this. Don't take it personally, whatever it is. Don't take it personally. I could say it a couple more times, but it's very important. And especially, you know, especially with anti-social media and the way that people sort of talk to one another these days, or don't talk to one another.
Yeah.
You know, it's really tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah.
But being able to go with the flow is important. You know, it makes things easier all around. If I'm on the road, if I'm in my van, you know, driving my band around, and you know something happens, man, we're all in the same situation. It's not like it's happened to one person and that one person can get offended and it's okay. It's like, man, we're all in this.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to be able to kind of deal with and go, okay. And so for me as the leader, it comes down on me. I've got to take care of it. If I've got a tour manager, they've got to take care of it, but they're going to come to me and say, how do you want me to take care of it? So really I'm taking care of it.
Sure.
And so, but this book, and I drew the cover, by the way,
Nice.
The face and the clarinet here are both line drawings, and a buddy of mine put this part in, and that's my van on the back. Actually, that's an actual size that I drive around when we get very small.
Nice.
Get in there, and
Yeah.
But this book has a lot of really practical applications for, you know, like when you're able to go back out on the road and kind of, you know, I mean, it's things like, you know, like having a band. Like who do you take out? Do you have a band? Who do you hire? What kind of music do you want to play? Do you have music to play? Who's your audience? What if some of the players are suddenly unavailable? How do you know when you need a manager? All these different things. And there's subheadings of like the band, gigs, money, travel, merchandise, marketing. And so there's basically like 40 baskets worth of things in there that you got to deal with, man, and things that I've dealt with over the years on a very personal level, you know, including like getting stiffed at gigs. Like you do the gig, you don't have a signed contract. They're like, hey, sorry, man, there's no signed contract. Here's $500, which may seem like a lot. Okay. But if you have 5 or 6 people in a band and you got to buy hotel rooms that night and you guaranteed the band a certain amount of money, guess who has to pay?
Yeah.
That's right. It's old JC. And so, you know, it's so you got to go with the flow, man.
Yeah.
And that's part of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great stuff. Highly recommend it to any of our kids thinking about music.
They can just go to my website, jeffcoffin.com. All my books are up there. They're
Sweet.
all on demand. So I have one copy at home. I don't have to have a bunch of inventory, which is awesome.
Nice. So I had a question about kind of about your role with Dave, and I think it relates again to walking into a situation, you know, where there was already a player in the band and you subbed and then came in. And so the question it actually comes from a student, from Christine in our trumpet section. How often do you improvise on stage, and are you arranging your own parts for the songs with TMB?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that's arranged horn-wise because there's 2 of us. There's Rashawn and myself. And so our role in the ensemble, we have 2 roles. One is an improvisational role as a soloist, and the other role is as a horn section. And so I do this because this is what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be one unit. And Rashawn and I play really well together. We articulate well together. We play really well in tune. We don't have to talk about that stuff. You know, we listen to each other really well. And because he's playing trumpet, lead trumpet is like, that's where the articulation comes from. And so I'm listening to him because I've got to be in tune with him because I can hear him really well. I can hear him better than he can probably hear me most of the time.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to get inside his sound. He's trying to get inside my sound. And so our role is to support the vocalist. Now, if you ever see a photo of me or a video of me playing with the band, and this is the audience, I'm always facing to my right, ever so slightly, right? And sometimes more than slightly. Why? Because that's where my field of vision is with Dave. He's in the middle, you know? And so he's the guy I'm looking at. And it's important. So I'm going to grab my cable here. It's important for my field of vision to be looking at him, you know, so that the focus of the ensemble is on him. It's the Dave Matthews Band. It's not the Jeff Coffin Band.
Yeah.
You know, and so even if I'm soloing, I solo a lot with my eyes closed, but I'm still leaning towards where he is, okay? Because if I've got a cue that's bringing the band out of my solo, I can't just be playing to the audience. I'm also going to be playing to the band, you know?
Right.
And so there's again, most of our parts are written out. If there's another solo going on, Rashawn and I will usually come up with a line behind the soloists, and we'll kind of play it to each other on the spot. Sometimes it's something goofy, like you know, something that we've been working on or listening to backstage or talking about. It might be like a Stevie Wonder horn line. It might be just something we make up. It might be a Phil Collins thing. It might be whatever, you know. And it might be just a tune that we both know. But improvisation-wise, you know, we both solo. We solo a lot. And so I'm not sure of the percentage of it, to be honest with you, but there's a lot of improvisation going on stage. But the stuff we're playing together is all pretty set in stone.
Yeah.
You know, and things change every now and again. You know, we'll change arrangements, change soloists on tunes. With Buddy Strong coming into the band, you know, we've moved certain solos over to the keyboards now also. And you know, what I was saying about not taking it personally, man, when someone takes a solo away from another player, it's like it would be very easy to take that person and go, oh man, that's my solo. But it's like nobody takes it personally, man. Like the band is so about the music, you know, that it's like, man, you know, whatever, as long as it's serving the music, we're good, man. You know, we love each other. We love playing together. And, you know, music is a service industry. We have to serve the music first. Then you serve the musicians you're playing with second. Then you serve the audience third. You're at least fourth on the list, you know?
Yeah.
But you get served by serving those others, you know? And I think that's the way we all feel in the band, is that we're all serving the music, serving each other, serving the audience, and then we get served after that. So there's nobody going, hey man, I want to solo on that tune, or hey, what about me? I kid you not, man. Matthews is an amazing leader, first of all. There are nights, and I can't believe this actually happens in this size of a group. There are nights that he'll come up and he'll say, man, I'm sorry, you should have had more solos tonight. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know? And because he goes through the set list every night. When he makes up the set list, he knows who's soloing on what. And he tries to give everybody a really fair, equal amount of solos, you know? But there's been numerous occasions. He's like, man, he says, I really missed hearing you solo tonight. He says, I got you tomorrow. I'm like, man, I'm good, bro. You know?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, you're playing for tens of thousands of people.
Oh man, he lets me live a dream that I never knew I would live. The same with Bela, you know. Yeah. And my role in the Flecktones was different because there were only four of us, so we're like four pillars. And it's just. And here's the thing: like you've got to know what your role is, and that's an important thing in any ensemble, whether it's marching band, jazz band, string quartet. You know, whatever, rock band, garage band, you know, whatever you're doing, whether you're in the studio, playing in a section or playing solo, orchestra, blah, 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 blah. You got to know your role, man. You got to figure that out. And as soon as you figure that out, you've got to embrace that role. Your agenda has to serve the ensemble, you know? And when it's your time to solo, man, shine, be a light, you know? But when you're in the ensemble, you've got to be a fist, okay?
Yeah.
You can't be the thumb sticking out. You've got to be the fist. And that is unity right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I did have a couple questions about soloing and improvisation while we're kind of on that.
Yeah.
One is actually a question from one of our staff members, a percussion instructor named Claire. She wants to know what you're thinking about when you're soloing on stage.
Yeah, Claire, that's a good question. Well, first and foremost, I'm listening. Ideally, so I'm talking about ideals here, okay? So ideally, I'm listening at the highest level, so that what I'm playing is a dialogue with the other musicians that are on stage. And in thinking about that, like, it's sort of, how do I describe this exactly? Because it's not like I'm consciously thinking, oh, you got to listen, you got to listen. It's like you find yourself in that moment, just like a conversation. I'm not really thinking about what I'm saying next necessarily. I'm just having a dialogue. And so when we're young, we work on things like vocabulary, putting words together simply at first, so that eventually it becomes second nature. We can have a dialogue without thinking, oh God, what am I going to say next? You react.
Yeah.
And you react in the moment. Improvisation is a lot like that. The word improvisation has nothing to do with music. So you can improvise a dance, you can improvise a soliloquy, a poem, a walk down a path in the woods somewhere. Improvisation, the root of it is improvisus, which is a Latin root, improvisus. And translated, it means unexpected or surprise. So it literally has nothing to do with music. But when you talk about improvising, a lot of times we think about music and the element of surprise, the element of the unexpected, which is what brings us back to it. And which to me ties in with the word education, which has a Latin root also of educare, which literally means to draw out. Okay. So rather than me giving a student a bunch of information to memorize and regurgitate, okay, I'm going to ask that student questions. I'm going to say, well, what do you think? What do you hear? What do you think we should do here? So that they're drawing out of the information I'm giving them or presenting to them. And that's the education. That's the learning. If I've got a private student once a week and they meet with me for an hour, do you know how many hours are in a week?
No.
168 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
There you
go. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I was trying.
Think about it. Oh, gee, I don't know. Should I know? I should know this. Wait a minute.
Not a math teacher.
So it's 168 hours in a week. If a student takes a lesson with me for an hour a week, they're on their own for 167 hours. So who's really doing the teaching here?
Yeah.
Big, right? So I've got to teach them how to draw out of the information that I'm giving them, the information that they need. They need to understand how to learn, how to teach themselves, how to go down this path of education in this process, whether it's improvisation, whether it's learning a tune, whether it's learning a piece of music, whether it's memorizing something. You've got to know the process. That's our job, is to teach them the process. And I have no idea what the question was. I'm off on a tangent here.
No, that's all right.
If you'll bring me back in,
it was all about improv.
It
was all about soloing. Yeah.
think, what am I thinking about? I'm just reacting because I've done the work, and I still work on it, but I'm still reacting to what's going on that's being presented by my fellow bandmates. And so one of the things that's a challenge within this 6-month lockdown that we've been dealing with is that we don't get to have many musical conversations.
Yeah.
Not live anyway. And so that's a challenge. But again, I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm trying to react. I tend to see shapes when I'm improvising. When my eyes are closed, I usually close my eyes a lot when I play. Memorizing the music is a big part of that. Getting off the page frees you up immeasurably, and I highly recommend that. If I'm trying to have a conversation with someone and I'm reading the conversation, it's not going to really flow, is it?
Yeah.
But if I memorize the words I'm supposed to use, if I have a storage of vocabulary, then I can communicate with somebody on a pretty high level. It's the same with music. So understanding the vertical nature of music, the arpeggiation, the chords, as we're moving along horizontally, the vertical as well as the horizontal, that's when you start to really get into stuff. And I can talk about that as well. But I'm thinking about that as I'm improvising. I'm thinking about the vertical nature of harmony. What is the chord that I'm working on? How can I use that in a way to communicate with what else is going on here? And first off, you have to have an understanding of the vertical nature of harmony. And you have to understand the arpeggio. You have to understand even just basic voice leading. How do you go from one chord to the next? From like a C7 to an F7. How do you go there? How do you move from one to the next?
Right.
And so these are things that I work with students on. There's a book I'm writing called Connecting the Dots, which is exactly this idea. How do you get through one chord? How do you put two chords together? How do you put a blues together? Using simple voice leading, giving the student vocabulary. And this will be out within a couple of months. And I'm to the moon with this thing, man. I am so excited about it, and this gets into, how, like Future Man, Roy Wooten from the Flecktones, we do a lot of clinics together. So we have this thing of like shaking salt into a glass of water. And at first you see the crystals, right? And so let's say that those are your fundamentals. So let's say you're shaking the crystals into the glass of water. What happens when you stir that glass of water? What happens to the crystals?
They dissolve.
They dissolve, right? But you taste the water and it's salty, but you can't see the crystals anymore. This is the idea behind working on your fundamentals. If you work hard enough on these things, they become ingrained in what you do, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't differentiate them anymore. You can't go, oh, well, that's that fundamental, that's that fundamental. They're all the same thing. If you think of like the Hawaiian Islands, for example, and you look at them from above, right? They all look separate, don't they?
Yeah.
Right. And if you took away all the water, though, you would realize that underneath they are connected to the same landmass. So they're not separate islands. They are connected. They're not connected at the top. They're connected underneath. That's the fundamentals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. I think that for a lot of high schoolers, and I teach the jazz band here as well, and so we get into some improv, and I think, you learn a few blues scales and you feel comfortable on those charts, and you do some 12-bar exercises, but I think it can feel so overwhelming.
Oh God, yeah.
When you try to jump from that, from like, okay, I can do C blues, over a 12-bar form, but to leap to reading changes.
But check it out. I totally understand what you're saying, but check it out. And all the students who come to me, I always talk about strengths and weaknesses, identifying 5 of each, right? And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is the thing. Like, playing over a blues or a one-chord jam is no different than playing a tune that has changes to it. There's changes in a blues, right? The whole point of how I teach improvisation is by using the arpeggios, right? So understanding the vertical nature of harmony, like I think of the arpeggios as the bones, as the skeletal structure of a chord. And if you think of the skeletal structure in the human body, like if we didn't have a skeleton, what would we look like on the floor? It would just be a blob. There'd be no definition. There'd be no structure to it. And it's the same if you see a tune that has chord changes. It can be overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, there's all these letters and numbers, and it's going by in time. And how am I going to know where I am? I'm so locked up, right?
Yeah.
And this happens to every student, right? There is not a student who's ever played music that doesn't feel this way at one point in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. And so taking the mystery out of that, how do you do that? I'm going to tell you right now how to do that, okay? And it's a very, very, very simple process. So there's a program called iReal Pro. And in iReal Pro, I'm going to show it to you here real quick so you can see what it looks like. Cool. So iReal Pro is basically a music -1 kind of thing. So you can play it and you can go through and it will play. Right, so it'll play the chords for you. It'll play an accompaniment underneath. You can do jazz, you can do funk, you can do whatever you want. So right now, what I have up here is I have one chord. I have a C7 chord, okay? C dominant 7. and that's notated. Let me grab a blank piece of paper here. That's notated like this. Okay, I'm going to use a heavier marker so you can see a little better. It's a C7 chord, okay? And so this chord is made up, it comes from a C Mixolydian scale, all right, which you don't even really have to know yet. But this is the C Mixolydian scale, all right? And so it's a major scale with a flat 7, okay? And when we say it's a flat 7, that's in relation to its major scale. So the C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B natural, and C. So a C7 chord, okay, C dominant 7, a dominant chord has a flat 7 on it. It's a major triad with a flat 7. And that flat 7, again, is in relation to its major scale.
Yeah.
In the key of G, if I had a G7 chord, okay, if I had a G7 chord, that would be written like this. If I had an F7 chord, it would be written like that, okay? All that means is that the 7th of that triad, okay, the 7th is flat in relation to its major scale. So in the key of G, there's one sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. So we know that 7th is going to be flatted. So the notes of that are G, B, D, and F natural. That's the chord, okay? And we find the chord by using every other note. So I'm going to go back to the key of C just to keep us consistent here. Okay, so if we put numbers under the notes, we have seven notes in each major scale, right? So the triad is made up of 1, 3, and 5, right? And so when we talk about a 7th chord, we add the 7th. Okay, and I've circled those notes underneath there, so for you guys to see, all right? So we have 1, 3, 5, and 7. So we know then that those notes, which make up this triad, which make up this chord, are the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th notes of that. So we have C, E, G, and B flat. That's what this chord is. Okay? That's exactly what this is. So if I see this chord and I understand the vertical nature of it, right? If I understand what that arpeggio is, if I know just those 4 notes, I can create a solo over this one chord. So I'm gonna play I Real Pro, which has just the one chord, has the C7 going over and over. Okay, and I'm gonna play a solo, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the notes of the arpeggio. Now, I'm either gonna use C, E, G, or B flat. Okay, that's all I'm gonna do. Right? Now, it's not the most groundbreaking thing I've ever played in the world, but if you have a 1-chord tune and you know the arpeggios of the tune, you can get around it. Okay, you can present a solo that works. Okay, and so let's say that we have 2 chords. All right, and this is where we start to get into what's called voice leading. All right, and voice leading is as simple as how does one voice lead to the next voice. All right, so let's say that we have an F7 chord. Okay, put a line between them here. So that's how you write the F7 chord. And as we said, relative to the major scale, I'm going to write out the major scale. F major scale is there. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, right? But we know that this is what's called a dominant chord, okay? And that chord has a flat 7, all right? So I want you all just to say to yourself what the 7th note of this scale is, okay? We count from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the E natural, right? And so we're going to flat that. That becomes an E flat, doesn't it? Okay. Now, if we know, and we do now, that the 7th chord is made up of the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th note, okay? Suddenly we have F, A, C, and E flat. That's our F7 chord. That's how simple this is, okay? Now, you may go, okay, so we know the vertical. How do we figure out the horizontal, all right? So I'm gonna pull up this 2-chord vocabulary segment, and I'll show you what it looks like, all right? So we have C7, F7, all the way through, right? It's those 2 chords ad nauseum, all the way through that exercise, okay? Plug myself back in here. All right. So when we're talking about voice leading, we're talking about how do the notes relate to each other, right? But before I get into that, I just want to show you that you can play a nice solo only using, again, sorry about that. Hello. Only using the notes of the arpeggio. So in the first bar, I'm only going to use C, E, G, or B flat. I may use them in inversion, though, meaning that I may start on the E, I may start on the G, or I may start on the B flat, okay? In the second bar, I'm either going to play an F, an A, a C, or an E flat. And again, I probably am not going to play them in root position, meaning I'm not going to start on the C, and I'm not going to start on the F, all right? But I'm only going to use those notes. I'm either going to use the C, E, G, or B flat in the first bar, F, A, C, or E flat in the second bar, okay? And I'm going to play a little bit. I'm just going to play, 8 bars or something. Here we go. So again, not the most groundbreaking thing in the world, but it works.
It's great.
You know, it works. It sounds good. There's good articulation. There's good rhythm that's going on. There's good subdivision. Now, here's the thing. If I gave a student, if I said, okay, you can use these notes in these bars, go to it. What are they going to do? They're going to freeze up. They're going to be like, what do you mean go to it?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Whoops, let me turn that off. Hang on one second. I kept thinking, like, I'm hearing some kind of echo in this room. This mic is on it. It's really loud. Okay. So they're gonna be like, what do you mean just play? I have no idea what to play. You haven't given them any vocabulary.
Right.
Right? It would be like giving a kid the alphabet and saying, make up a bunch of words. And they're like, what are you talking? I don't even know words. You know, what are you talking? Like, what am I supposed to do with these? And so this book that I'm writing gives them vocabulary. Like on one note, it gives them rhythmic vocabulary. 6 different exercises for the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. And then we go to 2 notes. So I'm just doing root and third. And then I'm doing root, third, fifth, and seventh. So it's this really comprehensive way of showing how to get through chord changes. Very simply at first, just doing 1 chord at a time. Then we do 2 chords, and then we do blues, right? Yeah. And so what I want to show you also is I'm going to play a blues, okay? I'm not going to use the blues scale. I am not a fan of the blues scale. I have to be honest with you. And the reason I'm not a fan of the blues scale is that I think that it doesn't force you to really think about what you're playing. It doesn't force you to think about how to get through the chord changes in a way that you're acknowledging the form of the tune. The blues is a sophisticated form, okay? And using a blues scale can get you through it, but it doesn't really work, okay? Now, I'm only going to use the notes of the arpeggio, all right? And so trying to figure out how to, or if I can, yeah, let me see if I can set this up so you can see. You can see the changes as they're going by. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through this, and I am only going to play notes of the arpeggio. So what I've shown you in these first 2 chords, the C7 and the F7, man, this is the first 6, 7 bars of the tune. And there's another C here, so there's 8 bars of it. The only other chords we haven't looked at yet is the A7, the D minor 7, and the G7, because the G7 happens twice. So the A7 is A, C sharp, and E, and then the G natural at the top, okay? Because the G natural is the flat 7. Normally in the key of A, it's a G sharp. We lower it a half step to the G natural. So that's going to be A, C sharp, E, and G. The D minor, okay, this minor refers to the 3rd, and we know that the 7th means that the 7th is lowered a half step. So what we have there in relation to its major, okay, all these alterations are in relation to the major. I'm going to show you here, okay? So I don't know if you can see this or not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, so D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. I have a D minor chord, so that minor refers to the 3rd, meaning that we're going to lower that by a half step. So what I'm going to do now is, rather than that being an F sharp, suddenly that's an F natural, right? And I know that because of that 7th that's there, I'm going to lower the 7th degree a half step. So that C sharp becomes a C natural. Now, if I go 1, 3, 5, and 7 again, I now have my D minor chord, D, F, A, and C, right? I'm going to make this a little easier for you to read. Okay, D minor 7, D, F, A, and C. So that's my chord there. And I know, we already talked about the G chord, didn't we? So we know that the G7 chord has a flat 7 in relation to its major. So G, B, D, and F natural rather than F sharp. So now suddenly I know all the chords in here, right? So I'm going to go through. You can still see this okay?
We can see the screen, but not the
Okay.
paper if you were trying to keep that up.
No, just the screen.
Yeah, we can see the progression.
So iReal Pro will take you through each chord as well. But again, I'm only going to play the notes of the arpeggios, either 1, 3, 5, or 7 of each of these chords. Okay. And I'll show you that just knowing the arpeggios can get you through a solo pretty nicely. Right. So again, all I played were notes from the arpeggio. All right. So showing you that, my point was showing you that is that if you learn the notes of the arpeggios, then there's not a tune that you're ever going to find that you won't be able to get through the solo. It takes a little work sometimes to know what they all are, but it's a process, you know? And so when I'm talking about voicing, let's say that I'm going back to those 2 chords. Now, how do I get from one chord to the next, right? Okay, that's a really good thing to ask. Let me, I'm going to print out a piece of staff paper real quick. And so I'm going to show this to you in 2 different ways. All right. I'm going to show it to you like this on a sheet of paper. And I'm going to show it to you on a staff also. Okay. So that you can kind of see both ways of understanding this. And so I'm going to use those 2 chords. I'm going to use C7 and I'm going to use F7. Okay. I'm going to do treble clef also, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember also that chords go above and below the staff. Okay. And so I'm going to write these above and below so that you can see them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to color in the tonic of both of these. Okay. So this is what I've got here. And so what I've done is I've colored in the C. Wait a minute, I'm over here. Colored in the C and I've colored in the F. Okay. And so I'm going to color both of those in wherever they occur in here so that you know exactly where they are. But that's the tonic. Okay. So 2 of them occur and you can see them there. So how do I go from one chord to the next? Well, I've got this sheet here also, and I've done the same thing basically. All right. So if I'm moving from the C chord to the F chord, okay, 1 bar apiece. Let's say that I start on the C, right? Let's say that I start here on C. Now, I know that F chord has an F, A, C, and an E flat in it. There's a C common tone, but I'm not going to use the common tone right now. So from that F, A, C, or E flat, okay, if I start on the C right here, okay, and I don't want to use that common tone, I have one of 2 choices that I can make. I can either go up to the E flat, or I can go down to the A, right? So I'm going to say, I'm going to go down to the A, and I'm going to write this in for you, okay? I'm going to do just a few bars of this. And this is how you start to understand voice leading. And it's a very simple idea. So let's say now, and I'm going to write the C chord back over here. So you can see going back and forth. Okay. So let's say that I've gone to this A. Now I'm going back to the C chord, the C7 chord, but there's no A there, so there's no common tone. So I can either go up to the B flat or I can go down to the G. All right. So I'm going to go up to the B flat. Now from that, come back over here again. Okay, so we're on the B flat. Now there's no common tone. Okay, there's no common tone. So again, I can go up to the C or I can go down to the A. I'm going to go up to the C. Now I'm on the F chord. Okay, this one in the middle. I'm on this C. There is a common tone going back to the C, but I don't want to use that. So I can either go up to the E or down to the B flat. Well, I've already visited the B flat, so let's go up to the E. Okay, and so we come back over here. Okay, because it's the same chord. I'm on the E. Now there's no common tone. I can either go down to the E flat or I can go up to the F. We haven't visited the E flat yet, so let's do that. Got two more chords to go. So I'm on the E flat of the F chord. Okay, I can either go up to the E or down to the C. Let's go to the C, and then from the C of the F chord, again, common tone. I'm sorry, I'm on the C chord. From the C of the C chord to the F chord, I don't want to use the common tone. I either go up to E flat or I go down to A. I'm going to end up back down on the A. So this is what I have now. I have my C. I go down to the A, up to the B flat, up to the C, up to the E, down to the E flat, down to the C, down to the A. All right. So now you can start to see there's a slight bit of architecture going on, isn't there? We go down, we go up, right? And then we come back down again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play just these notes over these chord changes. All I'm doing is taking one note. All right. So check this out. Great, you took a screenshot. Okay, I had to put it down because I had to play my E, which takes both hands. So what I can then do is let's say that I just want to put some rhythm to this, right? Just one note per bar. Here you go, check it out again. Right? So again, not the most groundbreaking thing in the world, but it works. It works. Now, what if I did two notes per bar, right? And so I'm going to show it. I'm going to just go through this really quickly for you. Okay. So let's say that I start on the C. And because I'm doing two notes per bar, I'm going to have to do them in half notes. So I'm going to go C to B flat in that first bar. Okay. Because I know that those are two of the notes of the C chord. C, E, G, and B flat, right? So from that B flat, I have to voice lead into the F chord. All right. So in C, B flat, so I can either go back up to the C, which would be kind of boring, or I could go down to the A, right? So that's going to be my first note of the F chord. And so from that A, I know that I have one of two choices. I can either go up to the C or down to the F. I'm going to go to the F, because again, I know these are my chord tones. From the F of the F chord, again, I make one of two choices. I either go down to the E or up to the G. All right. So I am going to go down to the E. And so, again, another half note in that bar. So I'm going to go from the E up to the G of the C chord. From the G of the C chord, okay, from the G of the C chord, I can either go down to the F or up to the A. Let's keep going up. Let's go up to the A of the F chord. And then my second choice in that bar is either up to the C or down to the F. I'm going to go up to the C. Okay? So far, this is what I have. I'm going to fold this over so you don't get confused. Okay, this is so far what I have. All right, just 4 more bars to do. And so from that C of the F chord, I'm going to go to the E of the C chord, then the G of the C chord, then the upper A of the F chord, and down to the F of the F chord, the E of the C chord, the C of the C chord, the A of the F chord, to the F of the F chord. So now this is what I have. These are all tones of the arpeggio. Okay? Hope this is making sense to everybody. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if through the wonders of technology, aka folding paper, I can position this so that you can see it. Working. Oh yeah, well there you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play these notes in half notes over the same progression. And I could continue my voice leading from there if I wanted. So now what I'm going to do with these notes, I'm just going to play some different rhythms over them. I'm going to go beat-up, beat-up, buddy-up, buddy-up. That's the only rhythm I'm going to use. Beat-up, buddy-up, buddy-up. So, ba-da, da-dee-da. So that rhythm, every bar is going to be this. Okay? Beat up, buddy up. Okay? Well, I don't know if my phone is reversed, but this is the beginning of the bar. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 3 and that's going to be my rhythm. Check this out. And so again, it's not the most groundbreaking thing you've ever heard in your life, but you can expound upon this exponentially by just learning the arpeggios and learning a little bit about voice leading. And that's one of the ways you start to improvise. That's one of the ways you start to come to an understanding of chords vertically as you're moving along horizontally.
Yeah.
And so again, if you learn this stuff, and you don't have to know it overnight. I'm still learning stuff about music. And I've been doing this for a really long time. Okay, it's a never-ending process. Life is a never-ending process. Okay, so this can help you immeasurably And Matt, this book that I'm writing is also for ensembles. They can work on it as an ensemble or individually, you know. And it's got the one in B flat has me playing along with it. It's a call and response, and so those are some of the things that I'm thinking about when I'm improvising. Also, is like, what chord am I playing? I'm not just willy nilly going around it. I'm thinking about the relationship of what I'm playing to the relationship of what everybody else is playing.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's, we could go on and on.
Yeah, no, that's great. It was really, really cool to see you walk us through a specific example. And yeah, great food for thought for these guys. And I'm sure a lot of us will be looking for that book when it's out.
I'm sure there's food for thought going on. They're thinking of food right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're getting close to that.
I hear you. Sometimes you gotta power through.
Yeah, I had a couple other quick questions for you.
Sure.
I was wondering.
If it makes you feel any better, I haven't eaten anything since breakfast.
All right.
I've just been going all day, and it's now 4:00 here, so it's been about 7 hours.
All right.
I've had anything in my belly.
Yeah, we'll get you out of here in a minute.
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm fine.
Cool.
I'm fine.
Hey, so I've seen you do a lot of doubling,
Yes.
flute, bass, clarinet,
Yep.
all that stuff. When did you start picking those instruments up, and how has it served you in the gigs that you've had?
Well, I started. A friend of mine gave me her old flute, I think, in high school, and I couldn't even hold the thing. I had no idea what to do, And I'm basically self-taught on all the instruments. I've taken a couple lessons here to there. But I kind of got out of my bad habits by myself by watching people and asking and listening. But I highly recommend if you can get private lessons on an instrument, by all means. Now there's YouTube. The information is there.
Yeah.
And, so I would definitely use that, and I do still. But they've served me incredibly well over the years. I've got everything from a bass flute to a piccolo, and I play them all: bass flute, alto flute, C flute, and piccolo, clarinet and bass clarinet, baritone, tenor, alto, soprano. I've also got I can't remember the names of it right now. Oh, it's terrible. But I've also got a sopranino, which is half the size of an alto, and a saxello. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, cool.
I also got a little bit of a curve on the neck and a size of a soprano and a straight out bell. The most recent thing I got, which I'll show you guys, is this weird looking hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it looks like a clarinet and a soprano at the same time, because as you can see, it's a conical bore, like a long ice cream cone, right? But it's not. It's not. It's probably not an instrument that you've ever seen, unless you're from Hungary. Okay.
Nope.
And I know we keep talking about food here, but I'm from Hungary, and it's called the taragot. And it's got pads or holes in a setup like a clarinet, but it's got pads on the bottom here. Okay. And it's kind of a weird looking thing. And it's got holes in the bell. I think they're mostly decorative, to be honest with you. Because once you put the lowest note down, which is a low B, a low A concert, it's also in the key of B flat, which is the same as soprano or tenor. As soon as you put that key down, then this is what determines the pitch, is where the lowest hole is. But it sounds a little, the reed is pretty dry. It sounds a little like an English horn, a clarinet, and a soprano sax rolled into one. And I've already recorded with it. I got it last week. And the guy I bought it from is a guy named Charles Lloyd, who is one of my musical heroes in the world. And so I'm thrilled to have an instrument that I bought from him. But I'm working on a tune that is from Peru. It's a folkloric Peruvian tune, but I'm putting a Hungarian taragot on it, which is pretty cool actually. And I'll play a little bit for you.
That's awesome.
So, anyways, it's a super cool horn, and
Yeah.
so yeah, doubling wise, it's really important. I'm just finishing also a flute book, an improvisational flute etudes book. I just printed it out earlier today, and it's super fun, man. It's like basically me playing over standards, and it's all notated out really well. And I've even got a little line drawing that I put in here. Where is that? So, because I do some drawing also. Oh, here it is. Just a single line drawing of someone playing the flute. I'm sure that it's supposed to be me, and so that's in the middle of it too. But I'm hoping to have this done and available on print on demand within about a week, and then have it available as an ebook soon also. So this is going to be the cover and the back cover. And you guys are seeing it first. Nobody else has seen this.
All right. Urbana exclusive.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so I'm really excited about it. So it's not just classical flute players that will benefit from this, but players who are doubling that have some flute chops available to them, and but I play a lot of clarinet and bass clarinet, and I do it in the studio. It's these instruments have paid for themselves, and that's why I bought them. I was like, man, if I'm going to buy these instruments, they better pay for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So I had one more for you. I can't get away without asking something from the percussion perspective, because I'm a drummer, and we have a lot of great percussionists in the band, and some bass players and keyboardists. And you have played with some of the very, very best rhythm players. And so, I mean, Victor Wooten and Future Man and Bella Fleck and Carter Beauford and Stefan and DMB. And I mean, I'm sure the list goes on with the other guys you've played with, but what to you makes a great rhythm section player, and what can young drummers, bassists, keyboardists be working on to well serve that type of role? Yeah.
Well, as I said before, man, the first and foremost, you have to serve the music, and so the rhythm section is like the roots of the tree. The rhythm section is what holds everything up. And the rhythm section's job is to groove. The rhythm section's job, the drummer's job is not to go boom, not at first anyway, and there's going to be the rare gig that you're going to be asked to do that.
Yeah.
Your job is to sit down and have a pocket. That's your gig, man. Your gig is to solidify the groove. The bass player's job is to lock up with the drummer. And the drummer's job is to lock up with the bass player. Everything else from there is gravy. The guitar player should be locking in with that. The keyboard player should be locking in there. The keyboard is a rhythm instrument. Because there's hammers in a piano. Not an electric piano, of course, but you're emulating that. So the hammer, you're actually striking something. Like it's almost like playing a bell,
Yeah.
Or a marimba. You're actually striking a note with a hammer. You're just doing it with your fingers, right? So the piano is a percussion instrument. And so you have to realize that you've got to be subdividing where you put that groove contributes or doesn't contribute to the groove. So the rhythm section, man, you've got a groove. And so the best rhythm sections that I've played with, and I've played with some unbelievable drummers. Vinnie Colaiuta, Future Man, Carter Beauford, Matt Wilson, Mike Clark from the Headhunters. I mean, this list goes on and on and on and on. Keith Carlock from Steely Dan, who lives here in Nashville. I play with him all the time. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable, dude. The musicians I've had the opportunity to play with, I have to pinch myself sometimes, honestly. You know, and the one trademark with all those guys, Will Lee on bass, Victor, Stefan, Victor Krause I played with yesterday with Jordan Perlson in this room. You know, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. The unifying factor with all these musicians is that they groove like crazy. They understand what their role is, and they groove like crazy. And when it's time to solo, they solo. You know, but when it's time to just be in the pocket, man, there is nobody better than these guys. There's different players, but there's nobody better. And being in a recording town also, you know, you've got to be able to hold good time. And you know, there's what I call band time, and there's metronomic time. And when you're in the studio, a lot of times you have to play to a click track. And so practicing with the metronome is an important part of what we do as musicians. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to play with a click track all the time, because when you're playing with other musicians, there's a little ebb and flow to that. You know, there's that dance thing that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's hard to dance to a click. You know, it's becoming more and more like that sometimes, which I hate. But you know, you've got to be able to play with other musicians.
Yeah.
And, but you've got to be able to groove, man. My favorite part of going in and working with students is the 30 or 40 seconds that I walk into the room before they know that I'm there. Because invariably, what's happening with the rhythm section is they're going, you know, playing some like crazy trip hop stuff, or like, you know, some hip hop groove that they're into, and they're just grooving, man. They have no idea who's listening. And then you walk into the room, and they go, oh, sorry. I'm like, what are you sorry for? That was killing, you know? Yeah. And like, bring that spirit to everything else. Man, make it groove. Like, what brings you back to a piece of music is how it feels, you know? And it's the rhythm section's job to bring you back to that piece of music.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great. That's great advice.
Yeah.
So, want to get everybody to dinner and all that, and let you get out of here. You know, band kids, virtual band camp in the times of COVID, any parting advice for them and what they're going through?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm sorry you're going through it. You know, I hope everybody stays safe, obviously. Safety is always first, man. It's always first, whether you're on the road or anything else. You know, you've got to be looking out for each other. And you know, that's first and foremost. You've got to take care of business. You've got to be masking. You've got to be socially distancing. Don't use each other's straws. Don't take a bite of food and give it to somebody else. You know, just be smart and be careful. And because likely you guys are going to be fine, you know, but it's your parents, your grandparents, people with immune compromised systems that might not be fine. And nobody wants to be that person that spreads it, you know. But I will say this, you know, find creative ways of being creative. This is not the end of the world, okay? Find creative ways of being creative. You will get through it. You're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. We'll be back on the road eventually. It may take a while. It's okay, you know. And but you can make music. I've made a lot of music by myself in this room. A lot of music in this room. Okay, and there's stuff like BandLab that you can get involved with that allows you to record online from different places and put stuff together. You know, there's GarageBand, there's Logic, there's all sorts of ways to create by yourself, and I encourage you to do that. Find out what you can do. You know, don't just binge watch Netflix every now and then. Sure, whatever. You know, but get off TikTok. Probably you're not even probably on Facebook anymore. But get off Instagram. Like get off the social media or the anti-social media. It's like I use it, but God, I hate it, man. I hate the way people talk to each other. But do something creative, man. Take a walk. Use your phones to take some beautiful pictures of something. Get in there and mess around with the editing features. See what you can do. Get creative with something. For God's sakes, man, get creative with something. And you'll find that you have such a passion for it. And it's going to open up doors that you didn't even know were there. Okay? And so, again, find creative ways of being creative. And support each other.
Yeah.
Support each other, man. Like, don't knock each other down, man. Lift each other up. That's why I'm a band geek.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true, man. I found my tribe many years ago, and y'all are my tribe. You're my people. I'm an elder now. This proves it. This whole gray thing here proves my elderosity. And but you're still my people, man. You're still my people, and always will be.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on, Jeff. This has been great.
My pleasure.
Love to have you down sometime when things are back to normal. We're up, we're over, wherever.
Wherever I have to go, I'll
yeah.
come there.
So cool. Well, thanks, man. Be safe.
You
Look
too,
forward
brother.
to seeing you back on the road soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Take care, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.